The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists. Blake Anderson from Blake Anderson, Facebook.
Greetings, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Marshall Hayner from Trees.Delivery.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
Tone Vays from Brave New Coin, live in his car.
Hey, everyone. On my way to speak at Carnegie Mellon University.
Will Pangman from Airbitz.
Hey, everybody.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network, who didn't update his script of who's going to be on the show today. So I just winged it there. Moving on to Issue 1. Issue 1. Barclays is getting into Bitcoin with Goldman-Backed Circle, the Bitcoin company that famously doesn't want to list the word Bitcoin on their homepage and doesn't want to talk about it, scored a major partnership this week, partnering with the British mega bank Barclays and receiving an e-money license from the Queen herself. The banks have come to Bitcoin. But will Bitcoin come to the banks? Blake Anderson.
Well, yeah, I mean, Bitcoin, we have our collective bowl of gruel, and like it's empty, and we're really hungry. So our only hope is to go and to grovel to these banks. So we should probably write a collective letter begging for their mercy so that our technology can work really at all. And that's really our only hope. No, I mean, there's a reason that the banks are so anti-Bitcoin when you really talk to the executives on a one-on-one level. They're against it because it's antithetical to the value proposition which they're trying to sell to nation states. So when you can't implement the entire full stack of value and actually compete with other currencies in a way that is competitive, and they're not interested in that. And so I think that it's interesting the case of a Circle where they're going to try to get value propositions out of it by admittedly not implementing the full stack and by trying to not mention the term Bitcoin to see how much value they can churn out of just using it on the fringes. But I don't know that they really have a solid lead on exactly how they're going to do that.
Marshall Hayner.
Kind of echoing Blake's sentiments. I think that there's so much interest in the Bitcoin space to try and raise venture capital and be the first PayPal of Bitcoin or some sort of Bitcoin bank or something like that. There's a million different, I wouldn't say a million, but there's at least several thousand entrepreneurs in this space from around the world that will just jump at the chance to do anything and pervert the original intentions of Bitcoin, which is to be a system that's off the rails. So you have companies like R3CEV. They've invested a lot of time and money, and they're working together with the banks, but they're creating something that's not Bitcoin. Why would the banks foster Bitcoin when it's in their worst interest? It's much better for them to create their own ledger system, and they're going to build their own technology. But it's Circle is just kind of like a lot of Silicon Valley tech companies. I think they're a great company, but I think like a lot of companies, they're riding the wave of buzzwords and different things like that. Like you pointed out, they removed Bitcoin, but I think the majority of their business right now is still selling Bitcoin. So.
And remember, it was always Satoshi Nakamoto's dream to make another PayPal. Tone Vays.
All right, can you guys hear me okay?
July 76.
You guys hear me okay? All right.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah. All right, so I don't know. I just find a lot of things strange with this story in general, especially the fact that Circle is merging with the UK bank. I see UK as the most bipolar country in the world right now. So they want to be the center of finance, and then they want to track everybody for tax evasion. They want to. It's just weird. They want to be the center of technology, and then they want to ban encryption. And now, one of their banks may actually be embracing Bitcoin, and it's Circle. I'm not a big fan of Circle. The first conference I ever went to, I heard Jeremy Allaire speak, and he said something like, the central bank should have a say in where Bitcoin monetary system goes. I actually heard him say it in person. So I'm really not sure what it means. It's a little different. I guess I kind of like it. Perhaps they understand what Bitcoin is, but I don't know. Like I'm not too excited over it like some people are, and Bitcoin will just do what it does. I don't think this is going to make any difference one way or another.
Will Pangman.
So when I think of Circle, I think of a financial technology company that's looking to make legacy finance compatible with Bitcoin and vice versa. And it seems that there have been a number of business development executions by Circle over the past year and a half or more that leave many, they rub a lot of hardcore Bitcoiners the wrong way. It's after a year and a half of the whole fintech world trying to divorce themselves from the term Bitcoin and separate Bitcoin from the blockchain and all these things, I'm not surprised to see the language that we are in this press release coming out of Circle and Barclays, calling it, even in quotes, I think it's a social payments app or something they're calling it, and really avoiding Bitcoin in a in a very aggressive way. But all these technologies and these companies that seek to make anything compatible with Bitcoin and vice versa, that's a good thing. We're ultimately going to have a system that's compatible with legacy finance, kind of a parallel system, and there will be, parts where those systems merge together, and that's all going to be a good thing. I do still I'm firmly ensconced in the anti-fragility camp of Bitcoin, and I believe, no amount of this level of propaganda anyway will dissuade Bitcoin's users from enjoying the use cases that are their favorites. And consequently, I think there's a lot of good that can come from getting the seal of approval from the Queen and getting the seal of approval from these other arbitrary authorities who essentially are saying they want to play ball and see what happens. So it's a net positive.
I think it's a good point, Will, that the banks didn't partner with Ethereum or blockchain. They partnered with Bitcoin. Once again, like Andrea said, Bitcoin will be here. Bitcoin survives. Exit question. The banks will absorb Bitcoin, or Bitcoin will absorb the banks? Blake Anderson.
Well, I think it's interesting to think of, Chris DeRose was saying, he's talking about vacuums of stupid and what's going to vacuum the stupid out of Bitcoin. And he said that the term blockchain and trying to divorce that was a really big competitor for the biggest vacuum of stupid, people that are only using blockchain without thinking of how that chain is really going to connect in the full stack. So I think that, people that want to put their fingers in the Chinese finger trap of Bitcoin without fully understanding the value proposition of what Satoshi accomplished are going to be very, very unhappy in the future about having done that.
Marshall Hayner.
I don't know if it'll be Bitcoin that will be the king coin, I guess, in the future, like the coin that everybody goes through like they do now. Maybe Bitcoin is version 1, but cryptocurrency will take over the banks and the finance system. And you have all these apps. What we're trying to do right now in the development space is trying to build apps to make it easy for people to use this. So flash forward 10, 15 years, maybe it's Ethereum, maybe it's a bunch of different nation-state controlled coins, and Bitcoin is still around as like this ultra valuable, ultra rare coin. It's really hard to tell, but it's kind of silly to to focus on, it's the blockchain. Bitcoin was the first one. It's still the number. You can't get into any other cryptocurrency without Bitcoin. I mean, I guess there's local litecoins.com or you might be able to find somebody who used Bitcoin to buy some other altcoins to sell to you. But yeah, in the future, it'll definitely be crypto notes. I also think there's always going to be a place for some sort of like banking institution where they have their own private ledgers and this kind of thing, especially for credit and stuff like that. But cash is going to get slowly sucked out as people realize that their dollars are just devaluing. And countries like Argentina or Venezuela or different places where they've experienced crazy cash devaluation, Africa, it makes a lot of sense. But it's still hard to convince anybody that this is something that you should use when you've been scammed like 5 different ways, and you're kind of entrained, been taught from birth to trust the government. So now you don't trust the government, but you also don't trust anyone, especially not some person on the computer who maybe you've been scammed on the computer before, you know? Like it's hard to, it looks so sketchy from the outside looking in. Like, oh, you know, Mt. Gox, Silk Road, all this stuff. I lost all my Bitcoins. Oh my God. It looks really sketchy. So I understand, but it's, you know, give it 10 years, let people build on it and do stuff. I think the other problem that people need to get over too is, you know, the idea of quantitative easing and value. I think once people realize that the dollar was always steadily sliding, they'll start to see more value in Bitcoin. But it takes a huge jump in Bitcoin for anyone to be interested. I went to a bar a couple weeks ago, and the bartender started asking me about Bitcoin because I had like a Bitcoin sticker on or something. And she's like, I'm not interested in Bitcoin. And I was like, well, it was about a penny in 2009, and today it's about $400, a little more. And she's like, oh, I'll take some Bitcoins for drinks.
There it is. And remember, if they won't accept your Bitcoin, just try offering them more. Oh, you won't take $10? What about 20? How about 40? You know, just give them money, and then eventually, yeah, they'll try it. Tone, Vays.
By default, Bitcoin will absorb the banks because it can't possibly be the other way around. The banks will never be able to control Bitcoin, so by default it wins. Though I don't think it'll be exactly the same way. Banks will still be there. They'll just be more of a consulting role and lending role.
They could be key custodians, right?
I hope not, but it's possible. But
they might be able to recommend a good key custodian for you.
No role for the banks at all anymore.
Yeah.
Will Pangman.
Yeah, Bitcoin can't be controlled by a single party, despite what you may have heard in various contentious debates going on. So yeah, it's definitely not going to be banks absorbing Bitcoin. Although I think we'll see a trend where it appears that Bitcoin is being absorbed by banks before it ultimately absorbs the banks itself. You know, so you might see more of, you know, the encroachment by banks on, let's say, the Bitcoin system, and as a route to, you know, them trying to get their hands around this technology and still, you know, maintain their incumbent status, right? So yeah, we're going to see Bitcoin exist as its own thing, and maybe that means it absorbs much of what banking does. But it certainly will just continue to exist and won't be absorbed itself.
I think we can agree. We've all seen the movie Alien, and Bitcoin is a little bit more than indigestion. Bitcoin will absorb the banks. Moving on to issue 2. Issue 2. Decentralized Bitcoin market OpenBazaar is now live. OpenBazaar released version 1.0 of their application, which allows users to buy and sell items using Bitcoin. The startup received $1 million in funding from Andreessen Horowitz and Union Square Ventures, but began life as a hackathon project known only as Dark Market. Is OpenBazaar everything that you wanted it to be? Marshall Hayner.
I really I have a lot of friends in the community that are involved in the project and that kind of thing. So I wouldn't say anything like, you know, it's terrible or I hate it or anything. But it's interesting because I think a lot of the hype around OpenBazaar came from Amir creating this dark markets idea. So I think the majority of the hype behind this project fell behind this. Oh well, it's going to turn into the Silk Road, but now they can't stop it. No one can stop it. It's, you know, Satoshi's kingdom. But then somewhere along the line, it got perverted into this, like, it's going to be like quasi-legal stuff, and, you know, it's going to be milk and almonds, and everyone get excited. And, you know, I think there's so much anarchist and libertarian rhetoric in Bitcoin that people just started kind of circle jerking around this idea, and then it never really, I don't know, like, it's exciting for me, but I still would rather shop like I think it's gonna have a long way to go before it gets to something really awesome. I still enjoy shopping on Purse because I feel like it's more curated and I can access everything. But of course I went out on there and I started browsing through the listings, and every couple of days I'm checking it out. I think it's really cool. The tech is really cool, don't get me wrong. I think that it will at some point serve a purpose. It's probably going to end up in someone forking it and making something else cool with it. But it's cool tech.
It's definitely a very cool idea, but it's going to take people a while to learn that they have to download the client to run the store. That's a new kind of shop that's never been done before. Tone, Vays.
All right, so I will be a little critical, and not really critical. I'm just gonna point out some facts that people don't like to admit. I know everyone is going crazy over OpenBazaar. I personally am not. The idea of a decentralized market is pretty good. However, you gotta realize where's the problem? Well, what solution are you providing, and what is the problem? I was just at a conference at NYU where every presentation was decentralizing the internet and how they're going to do it. So when it comes to OpenBazaar, the biggest problem was payments. You needed a decentralized payment system, and we have that. That's Bitcoin. But now they want to decentralize the marketplace. And that's going to be incredibly difficult for multiple reasons. For starters, you do have to download a client, which is just an annoyance. That's not the big problem. Here's the problem. They're basically rebuilding eBay and Amazon. And those companies have a lot of weight. So the problem you run into... Okay, I'm sorry, let me back up. First of all, OpenBazaar is not decentralized. It may not be decentralized for years because they are censoring the hell out of it, because I went on there the first day it launched, and trust me, you don't want to see the kind of things that were up there that were immediately taken down. And they were mostly there just for people's shits and giggles to see that they could. They weren't actually selling or providing that stuff. They were just doing that just to mess with the system. And that's what's going to happen. The biggest problem with the decentralized market is that why someone take the risk of selling legit goods in a market where there's a possibility of the sale of illegitimate goods. It's like someone selling, I don't know, dolls on the Silk Road. It makes no sense. So OpenBazaar needs to realize that if they are building a decentralized market, the only sellers on there that are willing to take that kind of risk and need that kind of market is selling things that the government would consider illicit. And if that's the market, then why would regular people start selling their stuff there until that illicit stuff becomes more, legal, kind of like marijuana, and eventually all drugs will be legal, and then some of the other things. So this is it's like a prisoner's dilemma. Do you really want to risk something out of principle? And most people aren't, at least not people with anything to sell, legitimate to sell in quantities. Also, they need to literally rebuild Google's search engine. They need to literally rebuild algorithms so that people know how to find their stuff. It's like they say all this stuff, oh, you'll magically be able to sell everything. How? They have to be able to find you. So these guys got to be some amazing engineers in order to rebuild what eBay and Google have already built. In addition, what are they really saving? Is Amazon such a horrible middleman? Is eBay such a horrible middleman? Yeah, they do take a fee, but then your fee is doubled because of taxes and all this and other regulations and stuff. You cut back on the regulation, the Amazon and eBay fee becomes way more reasonable. In fact, if you cut back on the regulation from Amazon and eBay, I bet you their fees would get cut in half, if not get cut by 75%, because one of the reasons why their fee is so freaking big is so that they also comply with regulation, because they probably got sued left and right. And these are just challenges that most people aren't even thinking about. I can keep going, but I guess I'll stop there. People get the idea. Just realize that when you build a market like this, you either have to embrace the dark side of the web, or you don't do it. And it's as simple as that. And I don't think they're ready to embrace the dark side of the web.
So you think they're trying to straddle too much and they've pulled their groin?
I don't think it's going to amount to anything. Honestly, no, I don't think it's going to work. And then maybe in like 3 or 4 years, open to the product that would have been sold there at the time, and there won't be such an investment for them to succeed right now. They'll work. It's like I always say, Pets.com from 2000 succeeded. It's Amazon. It was just too early and too niche. And I think they'll be around 2 or 3 of OpenBazaar. I don't think they'll ever get the network effect.
I think it's a good point that you bring up, Tone, that on the internet, people will attack your project just to attack your project. As Microsoft learned with their recent chatbot, you really have to be flexible and ready to deal with this onslaught. And we'll see if they are. Will Pangman.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely very excited about OpenBazaar. It certainly stands a chance at becoming the coveted Bitcoin killer app. There are some issues with it that I think are user experience issues overall that I'll bring up. But before I do that and maybe address some of the other points the panelists made, I want to quickly tell a story. So 2 of the Airbitz co-founders were in Toronto at the hackathon where Amir Taki and our 2 co-founders and one other person built Dark Market, and they won the hackathon with that in Toronto in 2014, and it's really cool to see someone pick up that project. They rename it OpenBazaar, but they continue to build on the library that Amir created for Bitcoin called LibBitcoin. And to my knowledge, the only 2 companies currently building on LibBitcoin, that implementation of Bitcoin, are Airbitz and OpenBazaar. And I certainly see some ways that Airbitz and OpenBazaar can join forces, let's say. But yeah, the things that I would like to point out as issues with OpenBazaar are not whether it saves people money, because it clearly does that. I mean, everybody's mentioning eBay and Amazon, but nobody's mentioning Alibaba and the bulk goods sellers in China who use Alibaba, and they get crushed with fees. So that's a huge advantage right there that OpenBazaar would provide bulk goods sellers in China. Access to a global market, they can accept Bitcoin. Bitcoin's popular in China. It makes a lot of sense there, and I think it makes sense in the West too, for a number of reasons. You know, trying to sell a good to a certain country where they can purchase it, but you can't sell it. OpenBazaar is your answer. Trying to sell goods that you're not allowed to sell in your country. You know, that's another story that I think future implementations of OpenBazaar or other projects might address for people, and you know, beyond the dark web even. So yeah, just to address some of the usability things, like I wonder what happens to a person, you know, Thomas, you mentioned they have to download a client, a desktop application, and make that their store. What happens when somebody's cat spills their coffee on their keyboard and their computer is shot, and you have 100 products up there?
And
you know?
Even bigger problem, Will, would be if someone doesn't like your store and they get your IP address and they start DOSing you. How do you get your store back on to sell your cat T-shirts? I don't know.
Yeah, well, and that brings up another point. You're going to need to be able to synchronize your store on multiple devices, you know. And there's other things too that I think, you know, OB1 can come into opportunities that we've opened here with our criticisms and solve them with their own maybe licensable implementation of OpenBazaar. If, for example, I mean, there's a lot of ideas and ways this could shake out, and I certainly see multiple forks of OpenBazaar, probably at least 2 within this year. You know, OB and then something else. We'll see that, I think, and yeah, it's flooding with users. The products are getting up there and getting listed. I see people who are buying stuff. It appears that they need to work on how they're going to advertise store locations or store addresses and stuff, but I'm really excited. I mean, this makes Bitcoin make sense for a lot of people out there, and it takes it out. You know, right now the killer app for Bitcoin is buy sell on exchanges, trading, day trading, or trading in general. That's the killer app for Bitcoin, speculation. And commerce has always been a promise of Bitcoin, global commerce. And here we are. Here we have the first test of a use case for global commerce with Bitcoin that's, you know, certainly more legitimate, let's say, than darknet markets. So I'm really thrilled to see where it goes, and I think some of these usability problems, you know, sync and backup of store and other things, you know, these will get solved. And yeah, I think hopefully we see China flood into OpenBazaar. That would be really great.
There are a lot of problems, but there are also a lot of solutions. Blake Anderson.
Well, you know, as a basically, you know, market anarchist in my views, anything that's going to, you know, develop the ability of people to engage in free markets globally is like, you know, like what is there to be more excited about than that? I mean, that's, you know, that's an awesome development that, you know, economics and technology are going to have babies, and those babies are going to be super ANCAP-ish, and that's going to be fantastic. I like OpenBazaar a lot also because they don't have, you know, a pump and dump scam associated with them, so you don't have to be like, you know, I love the project, but this huge scam that they stapled
If only they'd released OpenBazaar coin, we would have been all set. How can I use this market without a coin? I don't understand.
And I'm so glad they didn't do that, so they don't have to sit here and be like, you know, waste all this time trying to distract from the value proposition of, you know, free the market, free the world. It's not perfect right now. It's, you know, we're going to go in an open source direction and have lots of people use it, run into all kinds of problems, report those problems, and then work together to make it better and better and better. That's a great way to develop software, and I couldn't be more excited.
Exit question.
Sorry, Don. I want to jump back in there for a second. You know, this is like the one time you're driving, and the last thing you want to see is the speed limit constantly going up, and I'm like, crap. Now I'm like going 75, and the trucks are about to pass me. Anyway, so some of the things that Will said, those are just small technological issues. I don't even consider those a problem, but I did just pick up another major problem, and shipping address, right? I mean, that's a risk. I don't know if OpenBazaar is going to store shipping addresses internally, but I don't know. But there is a risk there, right? I mean, users of OpenBazaar could be discovered by their shipping address. I don't know what the solution to that is. I don't know if that address is being stored, but that's how you could be discovered as a Bitcoin user and maintain a record of what was bought.
Yeah, one way that issue can be mitigated is with something like Amazon lockers on a more global or generic scale. And there are services like that in other countries where you don't have a P.O. box or you don't have a shipping address. There's no address for your slum or something, and you need to go pick it up at a, you know, kind of private post office with a bunch of lockers. So that's one way that could be mitigated, which I think is a great parallel service that OB1 could maybe provide for the world.
I just think there's just a lot of legal risk there, but it's jurisdictional. So, I mean, again, right, there's OpenBazaar, and then there's OpenBazaar for the first world. So we'll see how these things interact with each other. Like, in the first world, I mostly mean U.S. and sometimes UK from the previous question.
Only sometimes for the UK.
Apparently, because you never know. Okay, go ahead.
Exit question. Should Amazon and eBay be quaking in their digital booties? Yes or no? Marshall Hayner.
I don't think so. No.
Tone Vays.
I don't think so either. All they have to do is accept Bitcoin as payment and push back on some of the regulations and taxes, and they'll be way back in business on these fronts.
Will Pangman.
Despite the lobbying power of large companies like Amazon or eBay, yeah, some simple regulations that may change based on some surprise black swan event or some emergency or some other tragedy or just circumstance could really put the clamps down on those businesses and make them pretty, you know, unable to function as a business anymore pretty quickly. However, OpenBazaar is resistant to those types of things. So that is one vote for the OpenBazaar camp. But I don't think Amazon and eBay need to worry anytime soon. However, what is the lifespan of a tech company? I mean, some of the longer ones are only, what, 20 to 30 years old. So we'll see by the time a marketplace becomes truly decentralized and more events happen in the world, that I think we'll see more choke points before we see more floodgates open. OpenBazaar has its place for the world.
How long does a tech company last? I don't know. Microsoft just seems to keep going and going. Blake Anderson.
Well, it's a good question because, like, on its face, it's like absolutely not. These are hypermassive giants. But in the long term, a trend towards decentralization implemented in the full stack of monetary policy to use is going to be able to subvert a lot of the regulatory capture that these huge giants have worked so hard to get. So in the long term, I mean, yeah, it's not a good trend for these people that have tried to legislate their competition out of business, because all that money that they spent and then now all that overhead that they have to continue to go through. When people can completely subvert those channels of regulation, which are not tenable anyway, that's not good for them. So it's an interesting question.
I think the real question here is whether or not Amazon or eBay can compete with OpenBazaar. And I don't think they have to, and I don't think they want to, and I don't think they will or need to. Moving on.
I'm going into a tunnel in case I lose you. I'll call back.
Going into it.
Now we get to do Schrodinger's tone again. Be like, is tone alive and well, or is he wrecked?
I'm under the mountain somewhere. Hold on. There you go.
Ooh, tunnel vision. But remember, you don't need to download anything or run your own server to buy and sell with Bitcoin at purse.io. Sign up today to create your own marketplace and sell your own stuff for Bitcoin. Discounts on Amazon, too, at purse.io. Issue 3. Craig Wright reportedly set to prove that he is Bitcoin creator Satoshi Nakamoto. Craig Wright is back again, claiming that he will perform a cryptographic miracle sometime between April 7th and April 14th. Mr. Wright claims that he is Satoshi Nakamoto, but as was revealed in an exclusive tweet on April the 1st, that position already belongs to MadBitcoins, who provided proof via a verifiable public key. Tone Vays, your thoughts on the latest claim to MadBitcoins, or should I say, Satoshi's throne?
Oh man, honestly, I'm really tired of the story already. I mean, the first time I heard of Craig Wright was on that famous panel when he was on the panel with Trace Mayer and Edmund Moy from the Treasury and Nick Szabo. I was there live in the audience for that panel.
Yeah, you and I and Tom were all there.
Oh yeah, wait a minute, all of us were there except for Marshall.
Yeah,
right.
except for Marshall and Will. Oh, no, Will was there.
Yeah, Will was there. Marshall,
yeah, Will was
the event. So I'm kind of tired of the story. I do not believe that he's Satoshi Nakamoto. If anything, he was probably a very early adopter. He was probably read the white paper even before Bitcoin was released. He probably mined a lot of Bitcoins early in the day, so perhaps some of those early addresses that people think are Satoshi might actually be his. But just the way he was arrogant about it, and I don't know, it just makes absolutely no sense. I don't think it's him. If it is him, I'll probably be a little bit disappointed. I'll probably be a little bit disappointed if it is him. I don't know. I don't know what else to say other than just, and who cares? Who even cares? I know it sounds like he wants that Nobel Prize. So even if he gets it, he'll be like 80 years old, right? They give these things out like 20 to 30 years after whatever they did has really proven itself. I don't know. I think the Austrian tax authority will get him this time, right? I mean, I just thought it was so ironic that it was the tax authority that raided his house the next day. That's just like the best irony for the things that I write, because I think I think the tax authority is like some of the most dangerous agents we have in the world.
Well, a
I
lot
don't,
of people said that that was happen either way, and that he was calling for attention to try to get help with his tax evasion issues.
well, I think we'll get to that later today. I'll leave it on that.
Will Pangman.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It was funny when he was on that panel, when Craig Wright was on the panel that Tone was referring to. He was mentioning things in very cryptic way, like really suggestively, holding back, but not really, that he was maybe Satoshi. And it was really, that was disingenuous for me. That was like, please, buddy. I know what you're trying to plant here, and I don't think I'm going to buy it. So, but yeah, I agree. I'd be disappointed if Satoshi turned out to be anyone other than a time traveler, to be honest. And why would he's very courageous. He must know something about Satoshi or about those earliest days of Bitcoin to give him the gall, the arrogance, as Tone put it, to suggest that he might be Satoshi and that maybe the real Satoshi won't, prove him wrong. He must feel like he knows something to make this really, really big, bad bet that could be incredibly embarrassing if it goes against him. So that does give me some curiosity about the whole situation. I know he had a lot of people convinced, including the 2 journalists who published the stories and a couple acquaintances of mine who worked with him prior to that panel, in assembling that panel. He had them pretty convinced by that time. But yeah, it'll be incredible if he can perform the feat he says he's going to perform to verify that he really is Satoshi. It'll be pretty unbelievable still, because as Gavin Andreessen pointed out, there still would be the opportunity for a scammer, attacker, hacker, someone to gain control of any of those addresses somehow, some way. And it might be that Craig Wright has control of those. So we'll see. It's very interesting. I wonder what he really actually knows, and this is a big, big bluff to make if he's really bluffing.
Oh, hey, Will, can I just throw a conspiracy theory out there? It just came into my head. What if the Australian tax authority really did get him, and he struck a deal that he will, get Satoshi out of hiding by becoming the public Satoshi, so that Satoshi has to come out and prove himself, and then the tax authorities will get him.
Don't do it, Satoshi. It's a bad move. Just say no. But yeah, well, I do remember that panel, and I was there as well. And I remember talking to Dr. Joseph Salerno. I think he was from the University of Chicago. And what he was looking for during that panel were some follow-up questions. And it's really unfortunate we weren't able to get them at that time because, as you know, Dr. Wright has pretty much disappeared. So we can't ask him these questions now. But he was talking about an incredible supercomputer rig that he was using to simulate the Bitcoin network. And, of course, the question that Dr. Joe wanted answered was, how'd the simulation go, especially vis-a-vis scaling? If we had such a supercomputer, it would be a great way to test different scaling solutions. And it's unfortunate that we've lost that opportunity. It's also unfortunate we don't know the real details, but allegedly, and according to what I've read, he took very large grants from the Australian government to work on artificial intelligence and large-scale AI servers type things. It's very unclear if he took this money and bought the servers or if he just took this money. We don't really know. He may have other tax issues. It doesn't seem like he's Satoshi, but we'll see about this cryptographic miracle. Blake Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, I was there as well, and I was at the conversation with Dr. Salerno and MadBitcoins, and I didn't behave myself very well during the conversation. You guys were talking about, is he Satoshi or not? And I was like, hey, let's listen to Alan Watts. I got like this 3-hour Alan Watts.
And I think we were also hanging with Nick Scabo, who's also rumored to be Satoshi. So it was very much a room full of Satoshis.
And so I was, saying we might as well, listen to 3 hours of Alan Watts. It's really entertaining, but I don't think that you're going to come up with, a mathematical solution to anything. It's probably going to be a lot of, really feel-good motivational stuff. I'm making that comparison. And yeah, I mean, as soon as you start, masquerading around as something that you're not, just taking what you say with a grain of salt is, I don't know, maybe not enough. And when he was implying that he was Satoshi, I don't know, like I've gone and I've spoken at events, like these are still really, really early on Bitcoin events, and what I feel like doing when I'm speaking at an event is, talking for, a portion of it, and then really getting feedback from the audience and having everybody, try to give ideas which are going to help our movement instead of, masquerading as Satoshi himself and then trying to say that I ran an experiment, but the results apparently aren't meaningful enough to mention. And I was just very, very turned off by the whole thing. And I think that even if he can spend some of the things that should belong to Satoshi, then my first conclusion would be that he somehow hacked into those. It still wouldn't be that he is Satoshi. So, I mean, paint me deeply skeptical here.
And I think we can say without a doubt that the real Satoshi would have shown up to the Las Vegas conference, and maybe the real Satoshi did. Marshall Hayner.
I think that he's a scammer. He's probably fake. A lot of people in the community think the same thing. The real Satoshi. What's the incentive for coming forward and proving that you're the real Satoshi? No one's going to pay you a lot of money. You're going to be under a lot of public scrutiny. Reporters are going to come to your house over and over. And I'd also like to point out it's not very hard to trick reporters into thinking one thing or the other. You just go on to, I think it's like share on FB and type, no, just kidding. But like you just, make a fake news article and send it, and you'll get a few reporters to believe you. For a scammer like Craig, I don't think it's very hard. I think this guy is addicted to the spotlight, and he also may have some tax problems or other things that he'd like to kind of, get in front of the public and get some public, maybe someone will help him or people will be distracted from what's going on. I don't think he's going to prove anything. If he was, he could just do it whenever he wants. I think he's just fake.
And remember that the last time we had a Satoshi, all he got was a free lunch. Yeah. Exit question. Satoshi Nakamoto is Tone Vays? He might not be able to unmute himself. It looks like he's...
Wait, I don't know. Is that a question or is that a yes or no?
That's a question. We'd like an answer.
That's a fill in the blank, right? Honestly, I think it's I don't even think it's one person. I think it's like one lead person with maybe a couple of people, but that's a lot of trust. I don't know. I don't want to know. I hope the world never knows. I hope it's like one of the greatest mysteries we have in the world, and it has to do with finance and money. I think it's great. I think the smartest thing Satoshi ever did was just to convince the world he didn't exist, if anyone wants to name the movie in the comments.
Will Pangman. Satoshi Nakamoto is ...
A mystery.
Blake Anderson.
It's DP Cooper, as Marshall Hayner just said in the chat, which is very, very funny. No, I mean, who is Satoshi? It's interesting. It's like, I guess the question is like, why do people care who Satoshi is? And beyond like, he made something that went way up in money, and then we're going to go ask him for lots of money. Like that wouldn't be as remarkable as like, what did Satoshi do? Satoshi, or the group of people that are Satoshi, invented digital scarcity. They made it so scarcity can be digitized, and that's a big deal. To say that that's a big deal is probably the biggest understatement that I could possibly make. So that's why it matters who Satoshi is. I have no idea who he is, and I hope that it remains a mystery.
D.B. Cooper, of course, was the famous bank robber who, when asked, "Why do you rob banks?" he said, "That's where the money is." Marshall Hayner.
But was that a question?
Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? Is it you?
Okay, I'm going to cryptographically prove some things tomorrow for everyone just to clear up the air about who Satoshi really is. And I'll tell you one thing. You know who knows who he is? It's Martin Shkreli. He knows the answer. He holds the keys.
Yeah, he was talking to him the other day, right? I saw it on his Twitter.
He helped him get the money back from Kanye.
Well, we need to get him on next week because apparently he has all the answers. Moving on to issue 4. Issue 4, Panama Papers scandal shows how Bitcoin could stop corruption. The Panama Papers exploded onto the scene this week with more than 400 reporters working together to analyze terabytes of leaked data that led to the unraveling of an international money laundering scheme as prime ministers, corporations, athletes, celebrities, and others transferred their money through Panama to avoid taxes. Could this all have been avoided if they had just used Bitcoin? Or would it never have happened in the first place? I ask you, Will Pangman.
I don't know. The question's a tough one. I don't even think I want to answer the question. It's more important to me that what Bitcoin provides is not the ability to prevent people from concealing the assets that they own and avoiding taxes in their local jurisdiction. What Bitcoin would do, is doing, and will do, is it provides for financial inclusion in a radical way. So the devices, financial instruments, the tools, resources, and systems that were once only available to the uber rich, the top few thousand richest people in the world, are now available ultimately to everyone. We've got some building to do, but they're available. They will become available to everyone. This is democratizing the access to a robust, sophisticated financial system. And if that means that it also includes the ability to hide your assets or conceal what you own and protect it from people who might like to take it from you, there's lots of reasons, great, very moral, ethical reasons to have a shell corporation. Among those are not to fund terrorism and so on, of course, but for example, some of them might be to your company is going to get sued and you believe unjustly, and so you have a shell corporation to protect some of your company's IP or assets, protect it from a predatory ex-spouse who's seeking to acquire some or all or half of it. And there's lots of really good reasons to be able to give donations to certain controversial groups that might, that your customer base might not like to see that you've done, for example. And now there might be some ethical issues in some of these. There's lots of gray area, but basically what these people did, I don't see it as apparently. A lot of it was legal, right? A lot of what they did was moving their assets legally offshore. Now, I'm sure that's not true of 100% of this millions of documents.
It's time to change the laws.
Is it time to change the laws and make moving money offshore even more illegal than it already clearly is?
We need to tax it more than we already do and for longer than 7 years after somebody's completely gone.
That's the concern here, right? Because that's what the reaction to this Panama Papers thing has been. It's, we got to crack down on these special privileged people who are getting away with not paying taxes like little old me. But like I said at the beginning of my answer, what Bitcoin means is not trackability and traceability for the uber rich and their assets and preventing them from concealing what they own and should be taxed for, but rather financial inclusion so that everyone could, have access to the kinds of legal strategies and financial strategies that protected assets for some of these people in these leaks. Now, I really hope some of the other panelists, I'm going to let it go, but I really want some of the other panelists to address or, discuss why there are so few, or if not any, American individuals in this document at all. And it seems that the people that they've gone after the most are the 3 most recently murdered and deposed dictators in the Middle East and Putin. What's up?
It's a good question, Will. Blake Anderson.
Oh, the Panama Papers. Well, the Panama Papers, this has happened to me before. Seeing something and having the origin of information be like, oh, wow, look at these crimes. These people are terrible. This happened to me in 2012 with Joseph Kony when I was like, we got to go and take out Coney, every single problem in the entire world because of this guy. And this new Panama paper kind of seems like a constructed narrative to make us believe that all of the bad things happen because the people that are enemies of George Soros evade taxes, which I think is like, is evading taxation good? No. Is evading taxation when you're in a really small country and it makes a big difference, is that good? No. But at the same time, the people that were implicated and the people that were not paints a picture of these certain people were enemies of basically the financial elite. Most especially, I think this comes out with the PM of Iceland. Did he do bad things? Yeah, but were those things bad compared to like what most leaders do? Not really. And what did Iceland do that pissed everybody off recently? They actually changed their financial system after the collapse, and gave everybody the middle finger. Everybody said, okay, well you're gonna go down in flames, and they were rebounding, they were doing well. Everybody knows that the Icelandic people have a predisposition to be very upset about economic malfeasance, and then lo and behold, there's some kind of a complex implication that makes it so that he's having a really hard time. Also, when I've looked into the ties to Putin and other people, they are so loose and sloppy that the journalism is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting journalism. If I can start to find out some actual material evidence that says that like Putin's childhood friend like gave him money or there was some actual benefit there, the associations are so loose that it's irresponsible. As far as like funding Assad and the barrel bombs going off directly with money that went through the Panama Papers and stuff like that, that hasn't been corroborated to my knowledge at all. The people that got money that were related to Assad were, again, with the loosest connections that I can possibly imagine. So it seems like a limited hangout to smear certain people. They decided, what do people look at and what are people interested in and talking about these days? They're interested in leaks. Let's paint this around some kind of a leak tapestry so that everybody pays attention to the dirt that we want to be known about. Are they corrupt? Yeah, but they're like the fringe corruption. They're like the lightweight corrupted are hung out so that the heavy corruption can still remain hidden. And I think that it's very sad because I was very excited.
There has been some good to come out of this story already. I haven't read the article, but I saw it come by in my notifications. Iceland is now possibly going to the pirate party because no one trusts their government. So pirate party groups could gain as they have just the right attitude for this kind of situation. Marshall,
we've got that Viking blood. We get testy.
Go ahead, Marshall.
I think it's funny because the internet has created this different, almost sort of like a lynch mob mentality when this stuff comes out, and WikiLeaks has gained a lot of notoriety because of this. So it's really interesting to see the tweet from them a couple days ago. U.S. government-funded Panama Papers attack story on Putin via U.S. aid. Some good journalists, but no model for integrity. It's basically saying what happens with this release is that it's just the government's way of trying to get people outraged over, as Blake said, wealthy elites not paying their taxes. With the advent of Bitcoin and other technologies and stuff like that, I hate to say it, but it could only get worse. These things could only happen more and more. So the question is, what really happened here, and how is it going to change? How are we going to? Is it important that what these people did supposedly wrong? I think the one good thing that's going to come out of it, echoing what Blake said, is that people are really starting to question their government more, which I think was a inadvertent effect that the U.S. government wasn't expecting from putting this out there. And it's only happening on this kind of micro scale in Iceland. But I think that the more and more people see these things and then realize that they're manufactured events, we're going to become more and more distrusting of the government. So I think it was a bad move on the government's part to kind of do this, because in the end it's just gonna blow up in their face, in the sense that people are, okay, well, why wouldn't the government just bust them and and do it like they normally do it, versus putting it out through this subversive media attempt at gaining control of the media and getting outrage.
I also think an important lesson here is that we should pay our IT people more. There was more than 2 terabytes of data leaked, and as anyone knows, only an IT person could leak 2 terabytes of data. So clearly there were some not well-paid IT people who had access to too much information, just like Snowden, just like Chelsea Manning. We're seeing this situation repeat over and over again. So pay your IT people.
Or
Tone
at the very least, the IT people let the people in who are like, bring a USB drive in here. I don't care. They don't pay me for anything. Physical access. There you go.
Remember, Chelsea Manning famously snuck in blank CDs and pretended to be listening to Lady Gaga, even going so much to bop his head with the beat. Tone Vays.
All right, so I'm gonna address some of the questions that Will posed in the beginning, but I also wanna I wanna agree with Will and I wanna agree with Blake. So I really agree with you, Will, when you said that Bitcoin is going to level the playing field, and I agree with that because now the small players have the same, if not better, tax advantages than like the rich boys have over in Panama, and now I'm going to address Blake's point and Will's question as to why there's no American. There's a couple of reasons. The biggest reason is probably the fact that Americans have a way of concealing their private assets in the States before they move them offshore. So the most likely scenario is that they've already incorporated in several states in the U.S., like Wyoming, like Nevada, like some of the other ones, with nameless LLCs. And then those LLCs are getting the money, and then that money is being held in Panama. So even if you get the name of the LLC that's holding it, you don't really know which people are behind it. So I think that has a lot to do with the fact that you're not going to get a lot of American names out of it. Now, to address the fact why is Putin being named and Iceland and all the people basically we don't care about, right? I don't think anyone in Russia is surprised nor cares that Putin is hiding money in Panama. I don't even know why he's hiding money in Panama.
It's not even Putin himself. It's loose associations. It's not even Putin himself. It's loose associations.
Right, and even if it was Putin, nobody would care. Trust me, Russians are not going to riot and overthrow Russia because Putin is hiding money. I mean, that's completely crazy. That's like, anyway. So one of the reasons is, like, the media in general is very, very lefty. And they're not going to out their own leftist politicians. Now, they will out the rich. And this is where I'm about to go on a little rant because I got very pissed at that Bitcoin.com article because I know Roger Ver doesn't want to demonize the rich. But that article did because it once again paints a picture that the masses are paying everything, but if it wasn't for these greedy mega rich who aren't paying their fair share, everything would be good. And I completely disagree with that. I think the mega rich, as long as he or she, as long as they earn their money fairly in the free market, capital market, I think it's their patriotic duty to pay the least amount of taxes as possible because they would know what to do with that money better than the government that takes it from them. So to me, the perfect utopian unicorns running around system is when private citizens have full anonymity and full privacy and only pay taxes voluntarily. But if you decide to work for the public sector, if you are a public servant, if you are a government agency, or if you are a corporation that somehow is dependent on government, which is many corporations, then your assets and your financials are open to the public, to everyone, where any developer can use the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, I can't believe I have to specify now, to validate where the money is going. So my perfect tax system is a voluntary system where people contribute taxes through something like Bitcoin, through a public blockchain, where they get to allocate their voluntary tax contributions, like people allocate the 401k plans. I want it to go to education. I want it to go to defense. I want it to go to, bomb in Iraq. Wherever you want the government to do that on a public blockchain where anybody can audit where this public money is going. And if you're a private citizen, whether you are a mega rich or a super poor, You have the same rights when it comes to your money. No favoritism. I hate the phrase "not paying their fair share." I honestly hate it.
Cost $1.05.
Oh, but by the way, one more thing. I actually wrote about this like 2 weeks ago on my blog. I have a post, and Cointelegraph ran with it as well. The 7 uses of Bitcoin, and this specific use was number 6 out of 7. Exactly like this, and I talked about it, and this was before the Panama Papers got leaked. This was out. And what OpenBazaar is doing is actually not one of my 7 uses for Bitcoin, but that's just a teaser. Read the article, I explain why. It's on my blog, Liberty Life Trail. There's a plug.
Exit question. Now that we have Bitcoin, will this lead to more or less tax evasion in the future? Will Pangman?
Tax evasion? Tax evasion.
Tax emancipation.
I know, you want to say all taxation is theft. Libertarian.
No, I was giving the yeah, that meme is viral. But Bitcoin's going to lead to more people setting up anonymous boards for their shell companies in Nevada.
More. Blake Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin is a completely fundamental, separate monetary provision system. I mean, yeah, it's so fundamental that it's going to absolutely subvert the hell out of taxes, and it's hilarious.
Marshall Hayner.
I think when you think about Bitcoin as digital cash, it's sort of like saying, will cash aid tax evasion? Yes, absolutely. Will a monetary instrument enable someone to evade taxes? Yeah, if you can buy bars of gold and bury them in your backyard, yes, you can avoid taxes. Can you buy Bitcoins and store them on a USB drive? Same thing. Yes, you can use instruments of money to avoid taxes. To what extent? I think it might not be the best way to avoid taxes. If you're trying to hide money, then buying Bitcoin is probably a red flag for the IRS. But if you are, if you put it onto a brain wallet and memorize it, at least you can take it to jail with you, and you can come back out with the money maybe. I don't know. I think that there's this libertarian wet dream idea of that what Tone is talking about, and not to negate that, because I think it's really cool, but it still is kind of like this sci-fi idea that we could pay our taxes onto this blockchain. If something like that did come along, I think it could provide better transparency, because at least you could look on this ledger and you could see, okay, this is what the school board is spending their money on, or so forth, or so forth. That could be really cool, but we're so far away from it. I think maybe the first step might be like using that as some sort of public accountability tool for officials in office and account holders and treasurers. But to say that they're going to use Bitcoin is really like a huge leap. It would probably be like some sort of colored coin or time stamping or something like that. Ultimately, of the public ledger, Blake was talking earlier about how it's the digital scarcity is one of the really killer inventions of Bitcoin. Also, I think this immutable public ledger is also very powerful, and the idea that you could put something on there and everybody can see it and guarantee that it's it works. But then at the same time, I think we have a long way to go, because the understanding of what this technology is very thin. So look at Craig Wright. He can fake a PGP signature, all these different things. Not to say that you can fake these blockchain signatures, but you can definitely, if you can walk the walk and talk the talk, you can scam people, and that's just the reality. I think it's going to take a long time before we can get to this place that this utopian society where we don't pay taxes, but the blockchain, it just comes out of your payment or something or out of your salary, or I don't know. There's definitely a long way to go, is what I'm saying, and I think that
it feels Bitcoin, It feels like it's not that far away, though. I mean, for example, you mentioned paying taxes on forget the whole Bit Congress and voting on the blockchain and voting whatever. Forget all that, and just crowdfund every government program, And just, I mean, Kickstarter, GoFundMe, Indiegogo, they're wildly successful. There's more things like equity crowdfunding coming out and new laws being passed for businesses in America to do equity crowdfunding much more easily on small scale. I mean, nobody's talking about crowdfunding all these government programs, which crowdfunding is definitely a bigger success than like any government program, right? So, I don't know.
It seems like there's a disagreement. It seems like the disagreement is the two camps are saying we need more fundamental changes to change anything. And then there's Marshall's camp, which says, yeah, but that's not going to happen, so let's use the technology to try to affect as much as we can. And I think maybe kind of both are partially right. Using the technology to, maybe a government created a proof of work coin with the taxation that is already in the monetary supply, which was low, and they were going to actually stick to it in a way that made a lot more sense than our current monetary policy. Maybe that would be some kind of good compromise where it's fundamental enough that it will make lots of big changes, but not so much highly interventionist governments involved in every layer of commerce that it's like, well, that's not tenable either. I think that it's a very interesting discussion to try to figure out where do those two camps meet and what does the future really look like.
Tone Vays.
Hey, Marshall, will you describe at the very end where your taxes are automatically taken out through the blockchain? You just described communism, so you might want to rethink that one. Wait, what was the question again? Oh, more or less tax evasion. Okay, so my overall stance, which does not change, new technology does not create additional criminals. So I will stick to that, and again, it's borderline whether a tax evader is a criminal because I don't think taxes should be, enforced taxes should be legal. But anyway, putting that aside, so what I think is going to happen is, I think the percentages will shift. I think there will be less tax evasion in the traditional form, and some of that business is going to move on to things like Bitcoin. However, I think overall, tax evasion will probably come down, even though governments are ramping up more taxes, so it should go up. I think overall criminality goes down over time. I mean, statistics prove it. And I just think the percentages would shift. I think there will be a rampant increase in people using Bitcoin to hide their assets, but that would be at the expense of not doing it through traditional means. So that's kind of my complicated answer to that question.
Tone got very close. It's a trick question. Tax evasion will stay the same. After all, stealers gotta steal. Moving on to predictions or story of the week. Blake Anderson, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week?
My prediction is that we will eventually experience a similar level of embarrassment about the Panama Papers as we did with Coney 2012. If we haven't already, I've already felt pretty embarrassed about it, so be prepared for that feeling to wash over you as you read through it more deeply.
Marshall, Hayner.
So while we were in the show, I happened to stumble on Reddit and see that Shapeshift recently got hacked and their hot wallet got exposed. And I guess some minor coins were lost, but actually, like, you know, whenever I see the word hacked at the top of Reddit on our Bitcoin, I'm like, I have my popcorn ready. I'm really excited because there's been so many awesome stories in Bitcoin. It seems like it's like the wild, wild west. It's very exciting to watch and see all of the money getting stolen by all of these cyber criminals. I don't know. Maybe I'm desensitized, but I think that it's, you know, I say it's exciting because it's an exciting time to watch all this stuff going on and see the very early Bitcoin exchanges. It started with stuff like Mt. Gox, and you have Cryptsy, and it's questionable whether or not these people, it was an inside job. In most cases, it was probably an inside job. But I have to commend Eric Voorhees. I've always liked his work. I think it's always really awesome. He's taken this different approach, the way that he built Shapeshift, and it didn't actually have a giant hot wallet or ability for anyone to really steal a lot of money. When they took money, it was just this little interim wallet that was changing coins. So yes, they may have lost $1,000 or a couple $1,000, but at the end of the day, this different model is definitely succeeding, and I think it's really cool because Shapeshift I see as kind of like version 1, and then version 2 is more like blocks and chains Decentralized exchange, or there was another one called Mercury Exchange. Pretty soon, I think it's going to be cool to see something like OpenBazaar, but for cryptocurrencies, and the swaps are atomic. So I think we're coming into a new era of engineering and the way that we structure our Bitcoin exchanges and these kind of financial services. Really cool to see it get hacked and only lose a Bitcoin or two.
So you're excited to see that they weren't socially engineered into sending Bitcoin to accounts massively multiple times before they figured out that something bad had happened?
Yeah, I'm excited at both. I'm excited when I see the word hacked at the top of our Bitcoin because it's always like some juicy gossip. But then I'm also excited to see that no one lost any money, and we can start to move into some new age of because it's really bad PR for Bitcoin when you keep seeing all this stuff, Cryptsy hacked, this site hacked. I think that we should just be moving into decentralized exchanges. That it'd be cool to see. People mentioned OpenBazaar being forked. I think that could potentially be a killer fork for OpenBazaar. Items right now on there are kind of like, virtual avatar and almond milk and like items that are like, I'm only excited to buy because I'm a libertarian and this idea is really cool. But cryptocurrency, to buy digital currency on a digital decentralized marketplace, now there is a killer app.
I think it's an excellent point, Marshall, that Shapeshift was protected by their business plan, which was not to hold user funds. They take the funds, they change them for coins, they send them back out.
Why are people so critical of other people's business plans? Well, because they should have looked at what Eric did first before they just built something and expected nobody to criticize it.
When you see something this elegant, you really have to recognize it. And just a little teaser, there should be a new article about the Cryptsy hack coming up soon in coinjournal.net from Ian DiMartino. Good stuff. Tone Vays, go ahead.
All right, so I'm doing neither a prediction nor a story of the week. I'm doing more of a warning. So this is what happens to people that criticize altcoins. Holy shit. So every now and then, you guys ask me an altcoin question, and I answer it. I remember like a month ago, I kind of spoke positively about Dash and positively in the smallest, minimalist kind of way. And everybody from the Dash community, not everybody, was hyping it up how Tone loves Dash. Then last week, I criticized Dash, and holy shit, did I end up with a shitstorm. So, I mean, it's a religion to these people. Like, I know Bitcoin is a religion for some of us, and this is probably how we were back in the day, but wow. I mean, they actually think that this is a Bitcoin replacement that's almost there. Like tomorrow, it will, like, their old coin is going to take over the world. Wow. So anyway, I'm not going to talk about it too much. I tweeted out my reasons for saying what I said about Dash. I'm not questioning the technology of Dash. I'm not questioning what they're doing. I think it's great. It's a great test net. Maybe Bitcoin will screw up, and if it doesn't take the entire world of cryptocurrencies with it, maybe there'll be a winner. But trying to guess this winner ahead of time is literally impossible. It's impossible. Right now, I guess Ethereum's ahead of the game, but everyone knows how critical I am of that project. Dash is there. Monero's trying to be there. But they're so far away. Anyway, just remember, when you criticize altcoin projects, even if you like them, if you criticize them, get ready, because their believers are relentless. I can tell you that.
Who else can you piss off? Who has a big enough following that they'll be back? Like Redcoin? Like who can we crap on here?
And the crazy thing is, I have never liked Monero. I have never spoken positively about Monero. Everything I've ever said about Monero was I don't care about Monero. But now that I kind of was a little critical about Dash, everyone is like, oh, that's because I'm now a Monero supporter. I mean, it's crazy the conclusions that people are making.
What about voxels?
No, I'm not. No, don't go there.
Hey, wait, we could buy a VR token that doesn't work with Oculus Rift? Oh, wait.
Where can I sign up? Give me a shit ton of those.
I'm launching a crowd sale for my crowd sales next week, if anyone wants to get on my crowd sales.
Crowd sale token for crowd sales is really the future right there. I think
derivatives are my entire portfolio.
And by the way, I know I just made things worse for myself with every altcoin community there is, but at this point, I don't care. I really got pissed off this week with like a million tweets back and forth prove it.
And I can tell you, Tone, from personal experience, all I did was tweet an article that was critical of Ethereum. I wanted people to discuss it. I think it's good to be critical. Some things are right, some things are wrong, but we linked to them. And yeah, I had a Twitter explosion, people attacking me, going after my character, going after Blake's character, going after ProTip's character, an open source project with 500 users, paid for by donations to the community. It's really strange.
Well, let me ask you guys, were Bitcoiners ever this critical to other people in the crypto community? I know we were critical.
Your phone's ringing. It's probably
I don't think that we were ever critical to the point of ignoring tenable information. And I think that if I ever saw anybody that was, I would hopefully have been like, dude, like you can't shout down people with rational, logical arguments. That's not cool.
If anything, with Bitcoin, it always seemed like we were critical of fiat, and we were critical of the existing system, which is, of course, a huge, million-pound gorilla stomping around doing whatever it wants. It doesn't matter what we say. But when the altcoins came up, I mean, people get tired of being scammed all the time. People get tired of watching their friends make money, lose money. So we kind of developed this thick skin towards altcoins, where they're a scam until proven otherwise. And I think this kind of attitude pisses off the altcoiners because they're more like, this is the world's greatest altcoin until proven otherwise. And it's hard for us who have been in this game for a couple of years now to have that kind of beautiful naivete. Tone, go ahead.
Yeah, no, because I got cut off. The problem with doing this on your phone is that people call you and it kind of screws everything up. Then I just hang up on people. But no, but that's what I'm saying. Like, were Bitcoiners ever like this insane to other people in the crypto space? We were, like you said, to the fiat people, and then I think the Bitcoin community as a whole kind of embraced altcoins at first, just like you said, Thomas. And now we've most of us have gone through it. We've seen it all, and we're starting to tune all this out. And now when you criticize an altcoin, they're treating Bitcoiners like Bitcoiners used to treat fiat people. It's kind of interesting, actually. It's a dynamic. And the thing is that most of these people, they move from one project to another.
It's probably not something the altcoiners want to hear, but I've always kind of believed that Bitcoin could steal any good feature that they come up with. Not even really steal, but more like just take it from one open source project to another and improve both projects by contributing code. Marshall Hayner,
we also know for sure that there's a destabilization effort going on among the Bitcoin and crypto community. So this is known. Moderators of subreddits are co-opting those subreddits and facilitating this destabilization of the community. It's not really, it's pretty brazen and obvious. So I don't know who you're talking to or who's hammering on you, Tone, but I'm sure some of them are just trying to drum up controversy to foment more destabilization among the community. That's got to be part of the noise because a lot of it's completely irrational, as you rightly point out.
Will brings up a good point about the possible double agents being paid. There was that interesting article on our Bitcoin about the automatic voting or automatic downvoting of ideas. It was more related to Bitcoin Classic, but there may be double agents out there. We have no way of knowing. Marshall Hayner, you were into Bitcoin probably before all of us. Marshall, do you have anything to say on this? Were people always so critical of altcoins?
Yeah, so in the beginning, in the very early days, the very first altcoins, some of the very first ones, there was a couple people on the Bitcoin Talk forums that would go in and they controlled such a large percentage of hashing power that they would just fork all the coins and then steal all the funds and liquidate as quickly as they possibly could. Barbecue coin was one of these very early altcoins. And it was funny because
that one actually had a use. You could use that at like a barbecue shop in Kansas City. It was like a legit coin. I call that, yeah.
And the guy, it started as a joke, and he was pissed. He was like, "Stop forking my joke coin! Like it's just a joke." But I think that there's so much money in Bitcoin at this point that everybody wants a piece of the pie. Everybody wants to create a coin. And I guess a good analog to this is I'm working in the legal cannabis industry. and I get a lot of investors asking me about, what does your company do with Bitcoin and how is it involved? Well, for us, it's very interesting because we take we have a real problem that we're solving. We're taking the cash, we're taking the money out of cash for dispensaries and digitizing it into Bitcoin. A lot of times I get asked the question, well, what about cannabis coin? What about pot coin? And it's just another coin, it's just another chain for people to come on. But these developers didn't actually solve anything. They just said, here's a branded coin. It's like Dogecoin. But Dogecoin solved something because it made it fun, and people were learning about it. It wasn't an attempt to grab cash, and that's why it did well. And there was like the power of the meme and online tipping and all this stuff. These other ones that come in and just slap their name on something, you better have like a real value. And Blake points out, none of these have any real value yet. Even Ethereum, it's just this kind of experimental thing. It could have some value, but I've come around on it. I used to be the same way as Blake. I think that there could be. It's gotten a lot further than I ever thought it would, and that's kind of where I was at with Bitcoin. I sold a lot of my early Bitcoins at $20 because I thought from 2008, 2009, this is as big as it's going to get. It's never again going to get beyond $20. So it exceeded my initial expectations. Anything that exceeds my expectations, I start to look at, and that's actually like none of the altcoins, but Ethereum definitely exceeded my expectations, and Dogecoin exceeded my expectations. And so I think it's the ones that you never really expect, and the ones that are in front of your face, and like Dash and some of these other ones, and I'll probably get some hate messages for this too. They're not really like necessarily solving any problems. People would say, okay, we're solving the problem of anonymity, but the cost to get in and out, it's still an experiment at this point. There's money flowing in, but it's mostly speculative money. I think that altcoins will always serve a purpose of lighting a fire underneath Bitcoin's ass, and hopefully that's enough to see it grow into something bigger. But the coins that we have right now, the top 10, none of them do anything really besides Bitcoin. So.
If can I just jump in for just 1 second? Marshall said a lot of things that I agree with a lot. I'm not going to say anything about Doge, but I am going to say about Ethereum. Ethereum is a token, and Bitcoin is like a coin. And like, what does that mean? Why do people use those two different words? Is there any reason for it at all? Well, Ethereum is a token which powers a smart contract system, which is not live yet. So the scientific value of this could be infinite. It could be the most valuable thing ever invented. But conflating that with the token value is, I think, where most people draw the line, and that's where I draw the line. And I don't mean to ever come off as anti-Ethereum. I didn't want Marshall to think that I'm anti-Ethereum or anybody else.
Agreed. The tools may have more value than the token. Moving on to Will Pangman, story of the week or prediction.
Yeah, I have a story of the week. It's actually a video that was posted by the CEO of Consensus, the Ethereum startup in New York, based in New York City. One of their employees is Vinay Gupta, who's a cypherpunk from way back in the day. And he gives this presentation. I'm not sure what the event is. I'll put it right here in the show chat here so that Thomas can put it in the video description on YouTube later. It's this great presentation that Vinay Gupta does to help people who are outside of technology, or technology, computing, and computers are a peripheral thing for them. Like they need to use technology at work, otherwise they don't think about it much. But they're interested in where the future's headed. This presentation is great for people who have an interest in Bitcoin and blockchains, specifically Ethereum probably, because that's the project Vinay Gupta works on. But it's a great way to give people a primer on the relevance of blockchain innovation to their life, and in a historical context and a literary context in technology history. So I really want to just impress people to watch that. It's a fantastic thing to share with your intellectual friends who haven't dabbled or become interested or seen the relevancy for this profound new technological innovation in their own life. This is a great way to warm them up to it, and it's a really, really wonderful presentation with lots of deep thoughts in it. And the final thing I'd like to say is anyone who wants to get some free Bitcoin, download your Airbitz wallet and take some money.
All right, very good. And now, I didn't have time to write a prediction, so here's the story of the week. Congratulations to UC Berkeley, who won the first annual Blockchain Madness put on by the College Crypto Network, or the Blockchain Education Network. They defeated Georgia Tech in a contest of Bitcoin, blockchain trivia. A real battle of the wills, yes. A game of wits, not for nitwits. Congratulations to them and all the teams who participated. Learn more about Generation Blockchain at blockchainedu.org. The children are our future, right? Correct? RR? How can that be right? Oh, we're out of time. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.